there and taps his hands and you're just sitting there and you sit there and rock back and forth and they show him a big old another murderer or whatever he is convicted up to this point of a case, not in handcuffs, not in shackles, one or the other or both, and in orange.
Hello everybody, Excited Utterance here. My name is Hella, and yes, Bobby, this is Liv. It's so Liv, indeed, and Moonvale. Hello, good afternoon. And yes, Moonvale, it's afternoon for me too. Moonvale's here in Australia with me. Bobby, I don't know what time of night it is for you, but hey, I just felt like I would live, because why not? I've noticed that people are kind of around at this time of day, night, whatever it is. So I figure, why not? Let's go live, whatever we like to call it. Hi. G'day, AG. What is this? A super late stream? Well, it's actually 1:13 p.m. for me in the afternoon. Yes. Hey, Mavka. Free Bryan. Now, I don't think many people are going to get that mad with me if I do the whole justice for Bryan Kohberger thing, right? Not many people I know anyway. I'm sure there's a bunch of people maybe over in Idaho, especially in the Latah County area, who would get quite mad at me. But hey, if there's any of them, I'd actually like them to contact me. Here's why. Because in the latest motion for change of venue, which I went through on my last Bryan Kohberger stream, there was a survey. And the survey showed that most people in Idaho, and it was just a small sample, but the survey showed that most people in Idaho already think he's guilty. And that's because there's been a lot of media saturation in the Latah County area, also in the Ada County area, but more so in the Latah County area, that is pushing the narrative that he is super duper guilty and that everyone thinks so and wants him to be found guilty and as quick as possible. Now, I'd really love to talk to somebody in that area. I really would like to know whether or not that's how people really feel. And not so much that, but also just hear about the kind of things that have been circulating in the media in the last year and a half. I want to hear from somebody who really lives there. Hi, Melissa Simmock. Good to see you. And it's 10:14 for you there. Is it AG? Hey, AG. AG. I just got off a Kohberger DNA stream. I had thoughts. Thanks for keeping it real. Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's the other thing, Melissa. I've noticed that there's tons of Kohberger streams late at night for you guys. So I figure might meet some new people. You never know. Make some new friends or enemies. Been making a few enemies lately. That's with my other streams. The DNA one, I saw the DNA one floating around. I was just looking around at who was live, and I saw that there was a Kohberger DNA stream happening. So I was like, should I just look at that or should I go live? And I was like, nah, I want to make fun of Nancy Grace because that's always fun. Let's make fun of Nancy Grace. Yeah, Snivels is here. It's always fun when Snivels is here. Good to see your cat left. Oh, that's not good. When my cat leaves, you know what happens? We're sans serif. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know that. Okay, so you know how I said not guilty. You know how I said that there was that motion for change of venue, and if you didn't see my stream on that, I know a lot of you guys did actually, but if you didn't see my stream on that, you've probably seen someone else's stream on that because everybody's talking about the 319-page motion for change of venue by the defense. That 319-page motion, which everyone keeps saying 319-page motion, a lot of it was press releases. So they were showing the press releases that had gone out, most of them from the local state police. So the Moscow State Police had put out all these press releases, some of them before Bryan was actually arrested, but most of them after Bryan was arrested, spreading a lot of information about him or what they thought his activities were. And then there was a lot of stuff about the probable cause affidavit. Lots of things also that were in the media about things that have been debunked since, like about him having relationships with people in the house, knowing them, stalking them. That's been debunked since, for example. So lots of things about that. And then there were also, after all those press releases, there was also this really important part, which was the survey that was done by the defense via tele survey, so not like telemarketing, but calling people up in the local area to find out whether or not the juror pool had been tainted. Tainted. Yes. So there was qualitative and quantitative results that were shown. And we went through them on this stream, previous stream, my channel, and I called them all out. And there were some pretty scary answers that came out. Like, for example, if Bryan Kohberger were to be found not guilty, well, people might just go look after him themselves. They might be some street justice, some good old boy justice, that kind of thing. Or they might burn the courthouse down. Yeah, and then they'd come after the prosecutors. Yeah. Hello, Dirk. I was just watching a stream and they were watching Nancy Grace. I think I would have gotten banned if I made fun of her, so I stayed quiet. Oh, well, you're not going to get banned here, Dirk. You're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. Don't you worry. You're sans Lulu. Lulu's a lovely name for a cat. Yeah, tame. Yeah. She makes your blood boil. Well, you can let rip on her. I can't watch her without making lots of fun of her. And the way she's so mean to her panel. So, the latest stream that she's done on this is in response to the change of venue. So the previous stream we made fun of was the one where see the gloves up there? I've still got the gloves. The one where she made fun of the evidence, which I don't think is going to be allowed in a trial, but the evidence of him going or being arrested when apparently when he was arrested, he was wearing gloves. Right. So at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, when they raided his house and they arrested him, apparently he was awake and he was in his kitchen and he was wearing gloves. So apparently he wears gloves everywhere. Why does he wear gloves everywhere? Who knows? But she thinks that makes him guilty, that he wears gloves everywhere. Maybe he's a germaphobe. I don't know. Right. But he wears gloves, apparently. Who knows? All right. Who knows? I don't know. And apparently he was wearing gloves when he put his rubbish into the bin. And apparently he put his rubbish into his neighbor's bin. Maybe his bin was full. I know that neighbors don't like it when you do that. But maybe his bin was full. I tell you what. If he wasn't wearing gloves back then, he'll be wearing gloves now. Because something that he touched at some point in time has gotten transferred onto the buckle of a sheath that's ended up causing him to be charged with a quadruple homicide. So that's got to make you very careful about what you touch. Tell you what, he weren't a germaphobe then, now he's a germaphobe. Some people like to wear gloves. I mean, and also remember that it was 2022, end of 2022. Some people just went through a germ thing where they kept wearing gloves and masks all the time. I don't know. I didn't, but some people did. It was normal during COVID. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Wears gloves so he doesn't contaminate his chicken. Now, it seems that he was an insomniac. So this whole idea of him being awake at 2 or 3 a.m. does actually, it vibes with his alibi because he seemed to be awake at nighttime. I'd elect Nancy Grace to Judge Judy and Exy question her. That's cool. That's cool. Alrighty, let's get into it. Let's see what this, well, I don't know what to call her, this person has to say. This person has to say, oh God. But once I had Bronca on stream and we had Nancy Grace, and he goes, you know who she reminds me of? You remember the Wicked Witch from Little Mermaid? And then he brings up Ursula. He brings up a picture of Ursula, and next to her, going like that. Hang on, you're right. You're so right. Yeah, Bryan is a vegan. And actually, Mavka, what's interesting about that is, like, I always thought with Bryan being a vegan, how could a vegan go and choppy up for people? Like, surely a vegan couldn't stand the sight of all that blood and guts. But then some evidence came out, and some people think it's not real, right? But there's all these conversations of him in this community chat group called Tapper Talk. I've never heard of Tapper Talk before this, but apparently he has this condition called visual snow. And visual snow is like noise on your eyes. All right? Has anyone heard about this? Should ask Sal Smash or Pass? Look, we all know he'd say Smash. We all know it. Anyway, yeah. So has anyone heard about this visual snow thing? Right. So apparently, Bryan Kohberger has this condition called visual snow, and it means that you constantly got this noisy kind of thing going on with your eyes. It gets worse when you get up quickly. Some people have it to greater degrees than others. Some people have it so that it sort of comes in from the outside, kind of like a vignette. And he got it when he was, I think, early teens, and he got onto this sort of support group type thing because there's no real cure for it, and they were all discussing it, and he was like really upset about it, like suicidal, because people, when they first get it, they're like, I can't live with this thing. And someone said that, like, maybe you should try changing your diet, and he discovered that veganism supposedly helped him with visual snow. And so that's apparently, he asked Virginia about that. That's nose snow. It's a different thing, Max. It's different, right? You can ask Ricada about nose snow, not visual snow, right? Get it right. Hurrah, by the way. We were talking about you this morning, our morning, Max. So go back and watch Hearsay for Days. Yeah. Oh, your friend gets visual snow, but she blames it on her pain condition. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Anyway, so that's apparently why he is a vegan, not because he has any problem with eating animals or anything, but because of this visual snow. And some people who think he's guilty are all like, well, being a vegan's got nothing to do with him not wanting to stab anybody up. Who knows? Maybe after this, after the Nancy thing, I'll show you the whole Tapper Talk stuff if I've got time. Alrighty, let's get into it. Sorry, guys, in advance.
Tonight, bone-chilling Bryan Kohberger details emerge. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
Bombshell, a new tell-all book, reveals a bone-chilling theory on Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger. Author Howard Bloom joins Crime Stories for an exclusive interview.
Howard Bloom is joining us right now from Manhattan, along with an all-star panel to dissect what we know and what we are learning from Howard Bloom. You know, I have poured over every document, every search warrant, every return, every witness statement that I could get my mitts on. I have flown to Idaho.
I forgot about this.
To Moscow, Idaho.
Okay, hang on, wait. I need to tell you something. If you didn't watch my last stream, I mentioned this guy. I don't like mentioning this guy because he's the one who should be locked up. This guy, top left, right? Howard Bloom, B-L-U-M. He's written a book called, what was it? Let's go back. No, who cares? Yeah, whatever. They'll boost it again. Who cares? He's written this book, right? And it's all just made up fantasy about the Idaho 4 killings and how Kohberger is guilty. It came out like a month ago, and he must have some contract with the Nancy Grace show because she is like, oh, I couldn't put it down. I had both the Kindle copy and the hardcover, and I would take it everywhere with me. And now I've read it twice, and you are just amazing. I don't know how you come up with all of these amazing theories. How did you even know? And then apparently in the book, he talks about how the family of Kohberger knew immediately that it was him. How do you know this shit? Right? He never spoke to them. He has done no interviews with anybody, right? Or anyone connected with the actual crime. This guy, he's making shit up. It's all coming out of his butt. And he's completely profiting off this whole case before it goes to trial. He's making up facts based on the PCA, based on conspiracies, and I hope that Kohberger is acquitted and sues the pants off him. Absolutely sues the pants off him. Anyway, that's me having my rant about Howard Bloom. Hello, how are you, Dina? Good to see you. I don't get her angle. She always looks so pissed off. Oh, I know. Look how angry she is. Look at her angry face. I know, right? Imagine if she actually looked happy once. That'd be so weird. Imagine her looking happy. She kissed. People pay extra for that, Bobby.
I have flown to Idaho, to Moscow, Idaho, in the midst of winter and trudged through the snow to look at the scene as best as I could.
Oh, she shows this photo all the
route.
time.
I believe, oh yeah, good times, freezing. Then got in an SUV at night in the pitch dark. At the time, I believe Bryan Kohberger left that crime scene and started his circuitous route, although an hour's drive to his apartment at nearby Washington State University in Pullman, which should have been about an 8-minute drive. And somewhere along the way, he turns his cell phone back on. That said, after all that, I still learned so much from reading Howard Bloom's book. The name, When the Night Comes Falling, a requiem for the Idaho student murders.
Again, wow. This stream is only like 10 days old, and they've got available June 25, 2024 on it. That's strange. Anyway, 2.0, if you want to pop on, you're welcome, love. I'll send you a link. Just let me know. But I know you had a long day. Or you might even still be out. I don't know. Check it out. Look at this ad. Look at this ad for this stupid book. Like, what's going on? I hope Nancy gets sued too.
even the title made me stop. And in the midst of everything we all do in regular life, working, your children, your cat, your dog, your mom, I managed to finish this book in one day.
Fair enough.
Practically could not put it down. I had it in two forms. I printed out what I had and had it on my iPad so I could look at it no matter where I was. Howard Bloom, it's amazing. You had me sitting in the Costco parking lot in the heat, reading your book, trying to get to the next chapter before I came back home. It's amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind. You sit in a room as an author, and you wonder if anyone will read what you write, and then to hear someone talk about it so graciously, I'm very flattered. So thank you.
Well, I've never been accused of being kind before, so I will take that with a box of salt. I want to get right to it. There's so much in your book. I had to take copious notes. So I'll just start at the beginning. It was an amazing intro, and I was struck by the fact that you start your book from Kohberger's father's point of view. And what I learned about his father really touched my heart, how he never got to go to college, and he was so proud of Bryan Kohberger and was already referring to him as Dr. Kohberger amongst his coworkers. And it reminded me so much, Howard, of my father, how he didn't we're first generation college. And when I got through law school, in his mind, it was the most amazing thing ever. So proud, right? Now, here's my question with that lead up.
Yeah, what kind of
Almost
question?
at the beginning, his father and his family, Kohberger's family, suspected him of being the killer. And I found that just, I was dumbstruck. Because when I read about a crime, I don't immediately think, oh, my son did that. In fact, I've never thought that. Tell me your thinking and why you say that.
Tell me your
Michael
thinking.
Kohberger makes this trip out to see his son to make the ride back with him. This is a 28-year-old man, and his father is worried about him. He's making this trip. It's fatiguing, it's expensive, but he's worried about his son. He's sitting next to him in this car.
How do you know this?
Shoulder to shoulder. He knows the police are looking for a white Hyundai. And one of the first things he realizes when he meets his son is that his son's mood is volatile. That's his first sign that Bryan is in a state. He goes out to meet his son in Washington State, and he doesn't know which Bryan he's going to encounter. But that's his first sign, and he begins to see as the moods change and become deeper and more acerbic. He begins to wonder, oh my gosh. He begins to think the unthinkable. He begins to consider that his son could, in fact, be a murderer. And all this is building in his mind. And he's afraid to go there, as any father would. But he's getting these clues as if he were following footsteps in the snow.
What? How do you know this shit, dude? This dude's... He's a clairvoyant. Yeah, he's a mind reader. You're right. What a bunch of bullshit. What an absolute ton of crap. Does he know him? Like, was he there? Was he like sitting on the dashboard? My God, this is such crap. This is so wrong. Hey, Swift Fly, you remember? Hello, nice to see you. Did you have a different name before? Or have I just like messed up and forgotten? It's so good to have you here. It's so good to have you here. Speculation is ridiculous. Who is this man narrating nonsensical thoughts? Well, he's making a lot of money out of Bryan Kohberger being on potentially death row eventually. Because I tell you what, if this man does not get a acquittal or a dismissal before there is a trial, I reckon that he's headed for death penalty. Because you know what? juries are like. You know what juries are like. Oh, you're new here? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's lovely to have you. Yeah, you know what juries are like, and especially considering what we know about the attitudes in Idaho, even in Ada County. Like, we looked at what the attitudes were like in Latah County, but then to have a look and see, even in Ada County, it's pretty bad. Like, they really think he's guilty already. He's pretty cooked. If he actually ends up going to trial, it's pretty tough to get him a fair trial. I think that he's going to be found guilty based just on the DNA, because people think DNA is it. They don't understand what transfer DNA is. They don't understand that it can come from one place to another. They just think that it means that that was him, that was his finger that was on that latch. And they also, I think they can't separate the fact that that's not the murder weapon. It's just an object, a transient object that may or may not be related to the actual murder weapon. So, and even if the cell tower data and the CCTV of the White Elantra gets thrown out, and that's what they're really trying to do. If that all gets thrown out, and in my opinion it should, because that it should be a flat out Brady violation if they do not get that information from the state, then I still think that the jury would convict him based on that DNA. Seen it happen before. Guys who saw the Zachariah Anderson trial, we saw it happen before, didn't we? Teensy a little bit of touch DNA or transfer DNA.
No, and the footsteps are becoming bloodier and bloodier. And he now realizes, could this really be true? And then all of a sudden they're driving along in Indiana and they see police sirens in the back and the car has to pull over. And he begins to feel, what is going to happen next?
Wow. Guys, with me,
Wow.
Howard Bloom, who has literally written the book. The name of the book, When the Night Comes Falling, a Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders. And I have learned so much, more than we, the public, have learned, more than my sources have told me, by exhaustive research by Howard Bloom. You're looking right at him. Howard, you stated that these aren't your words, that you discovered this from what Kohberger's father stated to other people. What did he state about immediately suspecting his son was the killer?
He went out to Idaho, Washington State at the beginning with suspicions. You have to remember that
I just can't. I can't. How do you know he went out to Idaho with suspicions? How do you know that? How do you know that? How? And it makes me mad that the father or the family, like I know why they're not coming out and saying things. I get that. It's bad for Bryan's case if they start coming out and talking. But wouldn't it be like, for them, wouldn't you think they'd want to come out and be like, shut up. We didn't say any of that stuff. We didn't do any of these things. Who are you, you fool? Right? Wouldn't it just, like, for them, it would be just excruciating listening to this man speak on their behalf? Yeah, it would just be horrible. Did the Kohbergers talk to Arthur Bloom? As far as I know, no. He's never, I've never heard Bloom say that he had an interview or anything like that with the Kohbergers, so therefore no. If he had an interview with the Kohbergers, he'd be saying so. He'd be like, I spoke to Mr. Kohberger, I spoke with his mother, and they said this, quote. But no, he never said that. So that says to me that no, he's had no contact with them. Yeah. Hey, American Princess, how are you? Good to see you. All right, let's keep going.
So this is not his first trip out there. He even took his son out on the first trip in August when his son was just registering for school. He had real concerns about his son.
Joining me an all-star panel in addition to this incredible author, Howard Bloom. Howard, I noticed that one of the points of contention was about the route. And when I was driving that route from the King Road murder scene back to his apartment in Pullman, I was wondering why he did that, why he drove an hour in the middle of the night. And I'm sure you know there's no street lights. It's it's pitch black. I nearly ran off the road a couple of times when a semi would come by. But he basically did the same thing with his dad. The dad flies out, does a...
I have a huge problem with this timeline. I have a huge, massive problem with this timeline. Okay, so let's look at it. Idaho student slain, Bryan Kohberger timeline. Firstly, not even alleged, just says Bryan Kohberger timeline. 2:42 a.m. Phone pings at Kohberger's apartment in Pullman, WA, and heads south. Okay, so a phone doesn't ping at an apartment. A phone pings in the general vicinity, right? So you guys have all watched trials, right? So you know that when they say ping, they mean it comes from a cell tower and there's a general azimuth, right? So there's like a circular, quarter circular kind of area or a third circular kind of area where it is. Then they get another cell tower and they also check the general vicinity and they try and triangulate it to a little bit closer, but they don't like get it right down to the apartment, right? So that's to say it pings at an apartment is not right, right? Then they say that the phone is turned off. That's a lie, right? So never, anywhere, even in the PCA, which is full of many things that have been debunked, never does it say that the phone was turned off. The phone stopped responding to the cellular network is what happened, right? So what has been alleged since by the defense and by the defense's expert, Cy Ray, is that the phone actually started to travel west. And that is where there's very thin network coverage. So if the phone started to go west at that point in time, and that is actually when the state is alleging that he was doing the stabby, if the phone was traveling west, then that is with his car, because the car is helping to make this map. I'll go back. All these points here, these are these points here where it says Kohberger residence. The only way that they have tracked these is via CCTV. So they found something that looks like his white Elantra. Might not be his white Elantra, but could be. Right. So his phone is actually being tracked alongside the CCTV of the white Elantra. You take away the CCTV of the white Elantra, which may or may not be his, and you don't have these points over here. These phone pings, which are only generally in that vicinity, are around here. And then if you say that his phone was turned on over here and off there, and you don't know that his phone was turned off there, it might not have been. If he were traveling west instead, and these don't exist, none of this is true. Unless there's more data, which the defense is saying there's more data that the state has not handed over, which could be exculpatory. If they don't hand it over, straight Brady violation, and there should be case dismissal.
Lights. It's incredible. It's pitch black. I nearly ran off the road a couple of times when a semi would come by. But he basically did the same thing with his dad. The dad flies out, does a quick turnaround. He's exhausted. He gets in the Elantra with his son. And the son refuses to go the direct and much shorter route. Do you think that had anything to do with Kohberger believing he was being followed or monitored?
I think Kohberger, being a criminology student, was trying to take precautions. At this point, I don't think he had any belief or any knowledge that he was being followed. However, he was trying to be circumspect. He was trying to be one step smarter than the authorities.
Again, in addition to Howard Bloom, now preeminent author, an all-star panel. And I want to go out to Chris McDonough joining us, the director of the Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, host of the Interview Room on YouTube, who, like me, like Howard, has seen the evidence, has walked the scene, very familiar with the area. Chris McDonough, you've had a lot of homicide cases.
I just want to answer a question quickly. Bob, you said any idea why LEOs would be involved? You mean law enforcement officers, what, involved in a cover-up or what? Could you expand on that?
And very often, family members know their son is a killer, but they will never admit it. And I'm thinking about Kohberger's dad, who knew he had suspicions at the beginning his son was a quadruple killer.
Yeah, and Nancy, I think what happens is that parental, tendency kicks in relationship to they want to believe it, but they don't necessarily want to believe it, and so it's kind of a tug and pull from a parental position. However, in this particular case, it's obvious Dad had his radar was way up and had taken that trip to go out and pick up his son. So that in of itself.
Think about it, Chris. And let me throw this to Dr. Angela Arnold, renowned psychiatrist, joining us, AngelaArnoldMD.com. Have you ever seen parents that tiptoe around their child? That they're just waiting for an explosion. And when I was reading the first chapter in Howard's book, When the Night Comes Falling, you could feel the tension of the father in the car with Kohberger on this long drive, just waiting for an explosion. But we got to keep in mind the dad, Michael Kohberger, had spent his whole life trying to prop up, support, help Bryan Kohberger. So he knew it was like walking through a minefield. Anything can make him explode. And when Kohberger insisted on this circuitous route, which took hours and hours longer than a direct route, he went, okay, fine. You're the boss. Those are the words the father used to Kohberger.
Well, sure, because Nancy, the last thing he was going to do was confront this guy, because I have to wonder if the father knew all of this, was the father a little bit terrified of what could set Bryan off, and possibly
wait. He thought that Bryan was going to get the old K-bar out and go the stabby on him in the car. That's what he thought. Yeah, that's it. Right? And so he's like Bryan was like, Dad, let's take the long route. We're going this way. Like that. And his dad was like, okay. What do you want, Bryan? I wouldn't want you to explode. You don't have that K-bar on you, do you? Hey, where'd the sheep go? Where's the sheep? Sheep is missing. Oh, hey, sir. Oh, dear me. Yeah, where's the sheep? Sheep's gone missing. Make sure you're wearing those gloves now. Oh, cops are pulling us over. Take gloves off. Quick, they look suspicious. I've told you before, Bryan, they look suspicious. Fine, Dad. Dear me. What a bunch of crap. If the father was afraid of his son, he wouldn't be on a road trip with him. Yes, right? Right? It's very easy to dispose of a body on a road trip. Duh. Who are these experts? I'm Gen X. I've always thought that the folks my age were a bunch of lazy bums. Now they've all grown up, and perhaps they are still a bunch of lazy bums. It's so eye-opening, isn't it, Otto? I know. And looking at these photos of these kids, now I'm calling them kids. They're not kids. She keeps calling them kids. Now, looking at these photos, it just makes me think he's more guilty. More guilty. To get my cat.
Father's life in danger at this point, because apparently Bryan was agitated at this time. I wonder if the circuitous route had anything to do with some sort of
OCD kind of disorder that this guy has.
Howard Bloom, you also described Bryan Kohberger,
It's okay.
his heroin habit, how he got into heroin, and when he
the
managed
heroin.
to kick heroin after his father turned him in for stealing the sister's phone,
Don't vomit.
and he had to go into some sort of a rehab, a treatment to get his life straight. He kicked heroin and decided his body was a temple. And that is when he became a vegetarian. And I had wondered where that started, because now he's demanding certain types of meals behind bars and he's getting them. And I remember an anecdote where the family couldn't cook with certain pots and pans because they had once cooked meat. I'm working up to it. You revealed that Kohberger had 2 types of plastic surgery after he loses 100 pounds. What were they?
Well, Bryan Kohberger is intent, and this is the admirable part of him. He's trying to reinvent himself. He comes out of this depressing hardscrabble existence, a family with 2 bankruptcies. He's going to a hardscrabble high school. His father is a janitor at the high school. He's sort of
he's a Janny.
by that.
He's sweeping
He
up.
becomes a heroin addict, and yet, to his credit, he works himself out of this. He then he's trying to approach girls at high school. They're ignoring him. He loses the weight, and he still has this sort of flesh that's going over his midsection. And it's just not the sort of guy he wants to be. He wants to be a player. He wants to be one of the cool guys. And he thinks,
Hang on, he's got a flap. He's got a mushroom flap or a muffin flap, right? This is the first I've heard of this, that he had a tummy tuck. Are we saying he actually had a tummy tuck? Whoa. That poor family. This is so stupid. This is ridiculous. Okay, so, and this is the first I've heard of him becoming a vegan because of giving up heroin. And also, why are we even talking about the heroin? And I don't even know how much heroin he even took. Like, I don't know if he was an addict or if he just tried some casually or what. Like, I knew he was overweight. I knew he lost some weight. But why is this relevant? This was all years and years and years ago. So long ago, nothing to do with any of this. Zero to do with it. His first wife died in a car crash. He's never been married. Was he? He was a fatty. Yeah, no, he did lose a lot of weight. I don't know if it was that much, though. I don't know if it was enough to remove, a muffin top. A cunt. That's what it's called. That's such a funny term. It's a cunt. Sorry, you have to laugh at that.
so he has this surgery, these 2 surgeries are covered by insurance, and he reinvents himself. He's in good shape, as you can see in the photographs. He works out, he does martial arts, and he still tries to become the man he wants to be. And yet, at the end,
Plastic surgery.
Not plastic surgery.
The plastic surgeries.
He has these 2 plastic surgeries to get over his midsection, so there's not this sort of envelope, like the lid on an envelope.
Howard, you're so polite. Okay. You outline it in your book. He had 2 surgeries, one of them being an abdominoplasty, and the other, you know what? They're long. Let me rephrase, Liz. You described 2 plastic surgeries that Bryan Kohberger has. Both of them, I believe, were related to removing flaps of skin left over from the 100+ pound weight loss. A flap of skin and tissue that went down over his private parts and his lower stomach. He wanted to get rid of that. And when he did get rid of that through plastic surgery, he had a serious buff body. is the way I take it from your book. Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened. He had this vision that he would become a new Bryan Kohberger. And the tragedy is he almost succeeded. He gets out to Washington State, a new man, and he's trying to live a new life. And yet he's pulled back in to what he always is, to his essence, I believe.
Bryan Kohberger allegedly enters the home and walks past the first.
Wait. Okay, right. How much plastic surgery has this woman had? Right? Like, she's going, oh, you're so polite to call it this and that, a tummy tuck, whatever. Goodness me. Look how Nancy talks. Good God. What? How far is it left over his feet? I'm still giggling at the gunt. I forgot. I completely forgot about that term. I forgot it existed. And it's a pretty funny term. I mean, it's funny. He was apparently he was really, and I got to give it to him. Like, that takes a lot of discipline. To lose that much weight that takes a ton of discipline. So good on him. Well done. Well done. So, hey, David Nelson. Bryan almost reinvented himself as a healthy person. How horrible. Yeah, how terrible of him. How dare he? How dare he show so much willpower and strength to lose 130 pounds, which is, I think, about 50 kilos or 45 kilos. That's a ton. That's lots. That would have been really difficult. Buff body. What the fuck, Nancy? Yeah, I don't really like to think about her thinking someone's buff. Ugh. Ugh. Gross.
Rooms he sees coming into the Moscow, Idaho house and goes straight up a narrow staircase and turns directly into the room of his target, Madison Mogen. Author Howard Bloom says investigators believe Maddie Mogen is the target, and her best friend Kaylee Gonzalez is killed because she's in the room with Mogen.
Did Bryan Kohberger's parents suspect their son? An explosive new book suggests family knew more than they ever let on about their troubled son. Author Howard Bloom tells us more.
Oh, God.
Guys, joining me is the author, Howard Bloom.
Yeah, we know.
Author of When the Night Comes Falling, A Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders.
We need to see it again.
Howard Bloom has gone where many have not, tediously investigating everything about this case, and the book is full of revelations. We were just describing how Kohberger's own family thought at the get-go, before he was ever named a suspect or even a POI, person of interest, that he committed the quadruple murders.
You liar.
And in this vein, can you imagine Kohberger's father, so proud of his son getting his PhD, flies out to Washington to drive Kohberger back home to the Poconos area for Thanksgiving. And he's sitting there for all these hours in this white Elantra, which of course he knows has been named in the case.
Oh no,
and
not a white
over
Elantra.
at his son, who is acting more and more.
How many white Elantras do you really think there might be in that area? Like, just like rough guess. Rough guess. Because, you know, I showed you guys in the change of venue document all of the media releases that showed that they were actually looking for a 2011 to 2013 model. And then when they found out that he was driving a 2015, they were like, oh yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Sure. Easily hundreds. 69. 30K. It's got to be like the most ubiquitous car. Ubiquitous. I like that word.
Or volatile.
Well, let's
I want to move on to the next point. Listen.
In a shocking revelation, author Howard Bloom claims Bryan Kohberger is not a random spree killer. He had one target in mind the night he allegedly killed 4 college students in their home off campus in Moscow, Idaho. Bloom says investigators believe in a non-targeted attack, the killer would have stopped at the first door inside the house. It would have been instinctive to go into the first rooms after gaining entry, but that isn't what happened. Investigators point to the two surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, as proof Kohberger is after a specific target.
You know, you really back your theory up with a lot of facts, and the way they're laid out, it makes perfect sense. But all along, it has been believed, it has been accepted that Kelly Gonsalves was the target, the original target, and the others were just collateral damage. But you say no. Why?
Well, at this point, Kaylee is not even really living in the house. She's living up north with her family. She's going to graduate at the end of the term in December. And Bryan really wouldn't have come in contact with her necessarily. But he did go to the Mad Greek restaurant in downtown Moscow. It served vegan food, which he liked, which he would adhere to strictly, and Maddie was a waitress there. And my belief is that they encountered one another in the restaurant. Were any words said? Did they have a conversation? I don't think that was necessary. You know, both the prosecution and the defense have said for the record that there was no interaction between Bryan Kohberger and any of the victims. But Bryan was a man whose life was sort of determined by obsessions, such as being addicted to heroin, such as losing 100 pounds, such as deciding to become the best student after being a mediocre student. And I think once he saw Maddie, for whatever reasons, I mean, she's an attractive, blonde woman, charming, vivacious, ebullient, he becomes interested in her. And I think his fixation, he would see the parties. He would be in, I believe, on the periphery of events as parties were hosted at this house on King Road, a party house. And he would look at that and he felt it was in some ways a constant rebuke to the life that he was leading and the life he wanted to live. He could never be a part of that. And he decided in his rage and his mania, I believe, to do something about it. Kaylee is collateral damage. The two other victims are collateral damage too.
Near the beginning of your book, you talk about Bryan Kohberger delving into, quote, the criminal mind, and will be a, quote, scientist exploring why criminals do what they do. It's been kicked around that his motive, not that the state needs to prove a motive, they don't, but juries like to hear it. So practically speaking, you better hand one over on a silver platter on top of the Christmas tree. You can't have him full of rage and methodically trying to carry out the perfect murder and get away with it very calmly and methodically.
That's interesting, Max Mirror. I was just looking at those links you just said. So Max Mirror says both Nancy Grace and Chris McDonough have left stinky, fetid snail trails in their former careers, but managed to keep it covered up as they grew their public media ones. Well, you know what? That sounds just like some of the true crime bloggers and YouTubers, etc., who have felonies and things behind them. And the only way they can really earn money is by getting themselves on YouTube and making money that way. And trying to look like they are holier than thou, pointing the finger at defendants and stuff, as going, oh, they should be the ones in prison. But really, they've got bad track records themselves. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I'm not surprised in the slightest. I've always wondered whether or not she spent more than sort of 6 months working as a lawyer in any capacity. Maybe it was a little bit more, but I wondered whether or not she left in good stead. And this Chris McDonough, I'll have a look at his in a minute, but I'll show you guys shortly.
So, which one is it?
What's your felony record? You tell us, darling.
He was filled with mania, which is not the same thing as rage. And you're trying to understand, make a rational explanation for completely irrational acts. What Bryan Kohberger tried to do that night is to commit, I believe, the perfect crime. I believe he wanted to get Maddie. He wanted to kill her. And then once he gets into the house, once he finds another girl there, all his plans fall apart. That's why he leaves the knife sheath behind. He did think things out. As the police well know, there wasn't any blood, a trail of blood left by the perpetrator in the house. All they had was
oh my God,
DNA on the knife sheath. There was no trail of blood going up the hill or where a car was parked.
Okay, look, this is just impossible, and this is why it doesn't work, Howard Bloom, right? So the perfect crime is not even possible. You cannot stab up 4 people and not leave any blood trail, like you say. You cannot walk away from those people and not leave any sign of yourself. And the perfect crime does not involve just accidentally leaving the sheath next to one of the bodies. That's just stupidity. That's just dumb. That's not perfect. That's ridiculous. Oh my God. This man is infuriating, isn't he? Isn't he? Ellie need to look into the friends again, especially Hunter. Ooh, who's Hunter? I don't know about him. People are really onto this Sigma Chi thing. Apparently, the Sigma Chi fraternity in Utah, there was 150 of them involved in some like giant riot thing where people were like stabbed and bashed and stuff like that. I don't know much about fraternities, but apparently Sigma Chi has a really bad name across the country. Is that true? People know? I don't know about fraternities, but do they get a bad name like gangs? I know that the one in Idaho is not very well liked. Melissa Simmock sent links to, yeah, I've got the links. I'll show them very shortly.
To this day, they have not found the murder weapon. To this day, they have not found any clothes covered with blood from that house. And the house was filled with blood. We've all seen the pictures of the rivulets of blood leaking out from the foundation of the house. So he did have some planning. He knew enough, he thought, to turn off his phone from 2:47 to 4:48 for those 2 hours when the murders were taking place. And
Hey, Howard Bloom, you're the fire hydrant. You're giving me the information faster than I can take it.
Oh, he's a fire hydrant?
Fire hydrant.
Ooh.
You got to give it to me teaspoon by teaspoon. And I'm telling you, this book.
Wait, I did not like that analogy. She just called him a fire hydrant and she can't drink from the fire hydrant. Ooh, okay. Yeah, I don't like that visual.
Amazing. But Bryan C. Stewart joining me, high-profile lawyer joining us who practices in this jurisdiction as well as in Utah. Bryan, I hear what Howard is saying. I hear what Joe Scott Morgan is saying. And I've got to agree. I empathize. I get both the theories. The reality is the state never has to prove a motive. But jurors want to hear a motive. So do you believe that when this case goes to trial, which it is, despite the defense dragging their feet and dragging the judge along with them, he's going along with it.
Of course.
Do you believe the state has to pick a theory as to motive? Because these two are not consistent. Or are they? Rage versus method.
Well,
there is no motive.
Motive can be an important part of the circumstantial evidence that leads a jury to understand why a perpetrator commits a crime. But as you said, it's not necessary to prove that they committed the crime. Here, where Bryan Kohberger seems like somebody who's studying criminal justice and perhaps sees himself as the smartest person in the room or a narcissist, his motivation may be to commit the perfect crime. And he would know that choosing someone in another city who he doesn't have a relationship with would create a lot of distance between him and the potential victim. That's the first thing that police look for, is relationships in a murder. And he might have chosen Maddie as someone who's young and blonde and beautiful and might get him a lot of notoriety as he evades justice. And so if that's his motivation, that could certainly be,
This is a very wild attempt at a motive. Because the whole thing with the knowing them and the stalking has been debunked, right? So now the only motive that they've got is that he's trying to commit the perfect crime. That's it. So in order to justify the committing of the perfect crime, they're trying to now clutch at this idea that, oh, they're pretty and they're in a different state. So therefore, it's easier for him to get some notoriety and keep himself separate from them. That's the motive. Okay. Perfect crime. Leaves nice sheep behind. Kohberger. Shit. Stupid. But yeah, pick a theory. Yeah, the way she said pick a theory was stupid and gross. God. Yeah, okay, while we're stopped, let's have a bit of a look at this. So thank you to Max Mirror, because we can have a look at we can have a look at this. This is something that Nancy Grace was involved with. Nancy Grace, she's so well respected. She couldn't possibly be involved with this. So the Duke grape case and prosecutorial abuse. Lots of prosecutors go too far. Most get away with it, by Jonathan Turley. It was an extraordinary scene when Michael B. Nifong, the district attorney in Durham, NC, took the stand to defend his law license after his failed crusade to convict innocent Duke University lacrosse players of gang rape. He had no more success with his own defense after being disbarred for dishonesty, fraud, deceit, and misrepresentation. He was suspended from his job last week and now faces a possible lawsuit in civil court. Where is she mentioned? Nancy Disgrace. Hang on. Just get into it. There we go. Prosecutors are sworn to protect the rights of the accused as well as the accuser, to refuse to pursue cases that would not serve the interests of justice. Yet in today's environment, it appears that prosecutors can never be too tough, the way models can never be too skinny. Consider the career of Nancy Grace. Before becoming a CNN and court TV anchor, she was a notorious prosecutor in Alabama. In a blistering 2005 federal appeals opinion, Judge William H. Pryor Jr., a conservative former Alabama Attorney General, found that Grace had played fast and loose with core ethical rules in a 1990 triple murder case. Like Nifong, Grace was accused of not disclosing critical evidence. The existence of other suspects, as well as knowingly permitting a detective to testify falsely under oath. Really? Oh, really? The Georgia Supreme Court also reprimanded her for withholding evidence and for making improper statements in a 1997 arson and murder case. Gee, she's old. The court overturned the conviction in that case and found that Grace's behavior demonstrated her disregard of the notions of due process and fairness and was inexcusable. She faced similar claims in other cases. You might have expected Grace to suffer the same fate as Nifong. Instead, she had her own show on CNN, and the network celebrates her as one of the television's most respected legal analysts. On TV, she displays the same style as she had in the courtroom. In the Duke case, her presumed guilty approach was evident early on when she declared, "I'm so glad they didn't miss a lacrosse game over a little thing like gang rape. The grace effect is not lost on aspiring young prosecutors who struggle to outdo one another as camera-ready, take-no-prisoners avengers of justice. Grace's controversial career also shows how prosecutors can routinely push the envelope without fear of any professional consequences. Often this does not mean violating an ethics rule, but using legally valid charges towards unjust ends. Wow. Yes, she's an analyst. Bobby Bologna, whatever it is. Why haven't Dali and Hella married in an immigration fraud scheme yet? Because I don't need a green card. Does he want to come here? Do you want to come to Australia, Dali? I think you're scared, aren't you? Do I hoard money? No. White Fanny. Thank you for that. And the other thing is, before we move on, Chris McDonough. What did he do wrong? Boop, boop, boop. Justice delayed. Where is it? McDonough. Is it all about him or is it about someone else? McDonough. Ah, there we go. So Michael Crow was interrogated without his parents' knowledge. The boy who had stayed home sick from school the day of the killing repeatedly said he got up around 4:30 a.m. Oops, go away. I'm not subscribing to you. Go away. Repeatedly said he got up around 4:30 a.m., went to the kitchen for Tylenol, and went back to bed. Oops, hang on. Am I sharing this? I guess I am. Okay. And went to bed. He awoke to his parents' scream and saw his sister's body soaked in blood. He described Stephanie as the best person and kind and sweet. He said he loved his sister and was angry with whoever killed her. The cops didn't buy it. Escondido detectives Ralph Clayton and Mark Risley took turns interrogating Michael. They also enlisted the help of Detective Chris McDonough of the Oceanside Police Department for his expertise in operating a computer voice stress analyzer, a machine that supposedly determines when a person is lying via changes in voice levels. Oh, nothing's going to go wrong with that, is it? McDonough said the machine showed deception. Well, was there something Michael wanted to confess? Again and again, the boy said no. Oh, God. Then Clayton took over, telling the suspect that his sister's blood was found in the room, which was a lie. Officers Walter, Risley, and McDonough did not respond to interview requests. Clayton is retired and has moved out of state. Again and again, Michael denied killing his sister. He said he didn't remember anything about the crime and that all I know what I did is what you told me. That's all I know. Oh, how terrible. The detectives introduced the idea of good Michael and bad Michael. Oh, fuck them. They said he was blocking the memory of stabbing her. They said he was young and would get treatment if he confessed rather than be doomed to the harsh world of prison. Ultimately, Michael conceded that he must have killed Stephanie. Based on the evidence, he was handcuffed and taken to juvenile hall. What a prick. Oh my God, what happened to McDonough? This confession was preceded in the questioning, which eventually totaled about 18 hours, by another failed truth verification test conducted by Detective McDonough and more lying to the teenage suspect. The cops claimed a knife and tested positive for Stephanie's blood. That forensic examination of the wounds proved the knife, which Josh had actually pilfered from a collection at House's house, was the one to kill Stephanie. Those were all lies. The cops also said that Hauser and Michael Crow were in a room down the hall ratting Treadway out. But did he get away with that, though, Max? Because, like, he was a cop and he probably could get away with all that lying because cops are allowed to lie. So, Officer the Crow, Hauser, and Treadway families all sued Escondo Police, Officer McDonough, and others involved in the botched investigation. They claimed their constitutional rights against unlawful arrest, unreasonable search and seizure, and self-incrimination had been violated. Then what happened? After several years of successful delaying tactics by the defendants, U.S. District Judge Rose, now deceased, dismissed nearly all the family's claims. He ruled that because the boys' statements had not been used at trial, they could not legally claim that their rights had been violated. The Treadways gave up, but the Crows and Houses appealed. Oh, look, there's a Blum here. I wonder if he's related. Skondo officials insist their officers had good reasons to believe that Michael Crow was responsible for Sister's murder. Yeah, right. Who cares? Just because you had good reason to believe doesn't mean that you do that to somebody. These people are all shit. And it doesn't say, oh, wow. Oh, hey, Phil, how's it going? You're a Kiwi at heart. Well, see, Kiwis are like budget Australians. Hella doesn't speak Chinese. This puts her at a disadvantage. Well, do you speak Chinese, Daryl? All right, let's finish this other thing off. Yeah. See, these people are all terrible.
The reason why he chose somebody and doesn't have necessarily rage for Maddie, but has rage for the system, or mania, as Harold says, to beat the system.
Joining us, Howard Bloom, who has meticulously investigated so many facts of the case that we didn't know about, including Kohberger's past, how he lost 100 pounds and had 2 different plastic surgeries to remove a flap of skin from his stomach that went down over his genitals. He didn't want that look. He lost 100 pounds on his own, had 2 plastic surgeries to reinvent himself as a modern day Adonis.
Did she just say that? Oh my God, we were just saying that here, but she just said that on her show. She just said that he removed the flap of skin that went over his genitals. Like, that's a terrible thing. Like, we should hate him for that. Are you kidding me? Holy hell. She has no heart at all, this person. Like, man. Wow. Budget Aussies. I'm sorry. Australians and New Zealanders make fun of each other. We do. We are the biggest rivals ever. Wow. Well, I mean, does anyone want that look? Yeah, no, of course not. But I mean, this is just horrible things to say about somebody on a show that gets like legitimately like 1 million views or more. Like, she has such a huge reach. Wow. Don't we all have genital flap? Yeah, sure, Dali. Sure.
But according to his friends, what I'm reading in When the Night Comes Falling, his friends didn't like how that transformation changed his personality. He became a know-it-all, very aggressive, and that was borne out at Washington State University. He treated his friends in high school that way after he got his new look. He became, in his mind, the it guy, but somehow he couldn't pull it off. What, if anything, did that have to do with the murders of 4 beautiful University of Idaho students? Okay, to this whole panel, including Howard Bloom joining us, I've got to have more than what Joe Scott Morgan is telling me, that the attack on Kelly was much more savage than the attack on Maddie Mogen. Why? All 4 of them were brutally stabbed dead. I need to know who is my target. And in this book, Bloom describes a blood trail. He also describes the blood literally leaking down the outside of the house, which I observed when I went to Idaho.
Well, he would know.
That's it. Let's talk about the blood evidence, Howard Bloom. What about the blood evidence convinces you as to who the real target was?
Well, one point that you just made about the wounds on Kaylee being so severe. Kaylee fought back.
Is she sitting on the toilet?
She was originally in the bed with Maddie. She gets up from the bed. The room is very narrow. She tries to get towards the wall, but she's trapped by Kohberger, and she's fighting back, and she is not dying easily. It's a very violent death. And he's enraged that he even has to, I believe, that he had to encounter her. He did not expect her. And to then find this woman fighting back like a tiger is putting him in his mania, is exacerbating the situation. He thought he would go in there and kill Maddie, her presence rebuked him. I think that's what was going on that night in that house.
Nancy?
I'm trying to take it in. Yeah, jump in.
So there's a couple of things, from my thought process in this.
Yeah, he must have been there, right?
One is, that evening, Kohberger, he's I don't think he's manic depressive or in a manic state in any way, shape, or form, my personal opinion. I think he's very organized. He selected his target set on purpose. And the reason I feel that way, there's a couple things. One is both Madison and Kaylee, they're attached at the hip. And that evening, when Kohberger pulls up, if he's our guy, he's got to see her car. He's got to know, based on the surveillance that he's been doing, that she potentially could be there as well. And so we have to now ask ourselves.
Whoa. I disagree. Because I don't know that Kohberger knew about her new car, a Range Rover.
He didn't know anything. He's never been there.
Well, I mean, it's a used vehicle.
She's living there. At this point,
Howard?
Not even really. At this point, Kaylee is not really living in the house. She's living in Coeur d'Alene. She just comes in for that weekend, and he didn't know that. He didn't expect it. And when he's circling the house, I believe, he's not really doing that night 3 times. He comes and goes. I believe he's not doing surveillance. I believe he's trying to find the will inside himself to turn off the motor, to stop the car, to climb down the hill, and to commit this crime. Each time he circles the house.
Lord. Yeah, Melissa makes a good point. If she didn't live there anymore and it was a brand new car, how would anybody even know? Right? So they've just gone and contradicted themselves. Lordy. Yeah, Max. Chris McDonough not only has a voice stress analyzer, he also has a personality disorder analyzer. Works like a Star Trek tricorder. It's awesome. Fight the crimes, everybody. Fight the crimes. Yeah. He's amazing, that Chris McDonough. I swear. He needs to have a cape. Kind of like your friend. What's his name again? The one with the blue suit? Your mate? That guy.
Not to see what's going on. He doesn't even really notice the cars, but it's really an internal battle he's fighting. If he had seen the cars, if he'd even seen the DoorDash delivery, there was a DoorDash delivery at 4 a.m., he might have reconsidered it. He was locked in.
Yeah, hold on, everybody. Hold on. Howard Bloom, you were taking our program down a pig path. Now, I guess you joining us from Manhattan, that you have never been down a pig path. But what a pig path is certainly not a direct line or goes in any organized manner. It just goes all over the place. But you know what, Howard Bloom? That's the way an investigation is. When I would sit around a table talking with investigators and witnesses, other DAs, one topic leads to another topic, and it's hard to marshal your evidence, which you did a great job in your book doing. But guys, he brought up another thing. Bloom brought up that Kohberger circles the house 3 times. And yes, I'm going to get to that store clerk who, in my mind, helped crack this case, who you say wants to remain anonymous, and I don't blame her. Long story short, how did you confirm, Howard Bloom, that a white Elantra or car similar to a white Elantra circled the King Road address 3 times, leading up to the quadruple murder? How did you confirm that?
Well, part of it is in court documents and the public affidavits, but I also spoke with the gas station attendant who gave the surveillance video to the police, too. So a lot of that is public record. What is not public record, clearly, is what was in the driver's mind at that time as he was circling.
Well,
Something
and
you
he
have
knows.
to remember, in
Wait,
all
he's
the
going to tell us.
videos, there's not one photograph of the license plate of the car. There's not one photograph of the driver. You can't see who it is holding the steering wheel.
No.
The FBI has tried everything to try to pull a picture from inside the car of who was driving that night.
We don't know.
They couldn't. So, but Kohberger, I believe, was the man in that Hyundai Elantra.
We know you believe it.
And he was trying to find the will to cross over into the man who was thinking about this horrific crime to becoming the sort of man who could commit it. And it was a difficult journey he was taking internally that night.
Okay, sorry. I thought he was going to say that, like, he knew he was the man because, like, he saw it or he felt it or he had a premonition or something like that. Like, kind of John Edwards style, you know, like clairvoyanty. Anyway, distant. Has he called Kohberger a narcissist yet? Now, I would have thought that would have been Nancy to call him a narcissist. In fact, no one's called him a narcissist yet on this whole stream. I find that very strange. Usually they get called a narcissist really quickly. I was going to actually, someone said to me the other day that I really should make a t-shirt that says, I'm a narcissist. She said so. Anyway, I do have a problem with the word narcissist. I don't like it very much. Dismissed the case. And of course, it goes without saying, everybody clap. Oh, sorry, hang on. I didn't read your last one. Last year, when trying to co-stream a fundraiser for Zach Anderson, Captain Ukraine told another tall tale how he had been falsely accused of SA, and mid-trial, thanks to DNA evidence, the judge dismissed the case. And of course, it goes without saying, everybody clap. Of course they did. Of course they did. He felted it. Of course, felted it.
Families of the slain Idaho 4 victims await justice as a judge sets a date for trial.
Yeah, and that judge, many argue, is kowtowing to the defense. When are these families going to get justice? That's a whole other can of worms. With me, Howard Bloom, the author of an incredible new book, When the Night Comes Falling, a requiem for the Idaho student murders. Okay, all hands on deck to analyze what Howard Bloom was telling us. Now, Howard Bloom, you crossed over into the gas station video, which is later when I believe Kohberger's leaving the scene. I'm going to go back to you stating in your book that you believe Kohberger, a white Elantra, circles the crime scene 3 times that we know of before the murders occur.
But there's going to be a quiz at the end.
Not the gas station video. You are telling me that's caught on video. Is it, as you describe, at the end, near the end of chapter 20, a guy who owns a rental complex, I think 3 apartments, a rental complex nearby, and he's got a camera on top of the rental complex looking down.
What?
Did his video catch the Elantra circling 3 times before the murders?
Yes. And in this video, too, they still can't make out a license plate. They still can't make out in the darkness the driver, but they are able to make out the car. When the FBI in Quantico is trying to figure out from these videos what kind of car it is, they try 3 different times until they finally come up with a Hyundai Elantra from 2011 to 2015. At first, they thought it was just 2011 to 2013. And that's one of the reasons why Bryan Kohberger takes so long to find him, because the authorities in Washington State were really looking for the wrong car.
Oh.
Hey.
Okay, now I forgive you, J-Rock. Now I forgive you for being mean to me all week. Where is he? J-Rock Gifted not only 5 gifted memberships, not just 5. And he didn't circle the house 5 times. He circled the house 3 times. 5. And then he gifted 10 gifted memberships. 15. He's gifted 15 memberships. J-Rock, number 2. Number 2. Love you from number 7. Just because you've been telling me I've been sweeping for Sarah Boone all week, that's fine. It's fine. All is forgiven. All is forgiven. You're awesome. Love you much. Love you much. Love you much. Oh my God. And then, oh, wait a minute. Do I have to forgive you again? Do I have to forgive you again? Another 5 from J-Rock. See, we're still mates. We're still mates after all of that. And see, you're an official Aussie now because you understand what it means to pay each other out. And paying each other out means having a go at one another and still loving each other afterwards. And, you know, being buddies afterwards. You're cool. And yes, everybody is green, pretty much. How did anyone end up not green after that? How would anyone end up not green after that? Dear me. Thank you so much, J-Rock. You are a legend. Love you heaps. Love you heaps. And I hope you get your X account back after getting swiped by Elon. Really. That's dumb. That's dumb. If Ricada's still on there, surely you should get your X account back. Okay, let me start reading them out. So we have American Princess, Garrett Pace, Lisa Faltersack, Before I Go, Hurricane Holly, John Sherry, Mark Baranik, keep your stick on ice, Mark, Elliot, Darlene Buzik, JRZ Wildcat, Ashley Casey, Adriana, D. Sig, Alec the Russian Agent, and we have Mazzy Star, Leather and Lace, Lois Thomas, Rat King, Dana Ross. Oh God, how many more are we? Hang on, Dana Ross, and then we have. I think that's it. Is it? Yeah, I think that's it. If I missed anyone, welcome anyway. Make sure that you click through to our Discord. It is underneath the membership perks tab. There is a link to the Discord. Come in and join us. We have lots of fun. In fact, this week, I think it might be Wednesday, we're going to have a chitty chat stream. And then after the chitty chat stream, we all get into the chill zone and we all have a big round table, everyone watch party and chat, and we all hang out and let our hair down and get nude, all that kind of thing. That might be overselling it just a little bit. And I don't sweep. You sweep. You sweep. J-Rock is written chat of the Greys. Hey, Ken, how are you? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. All right, let's keep going.
Just got Morgan. And everybody jump in. I'm going to circle back to you, Brian Stewart, about mens rea. About
the mens rea.
Is it
no
even
one wants
needed?
The mens rea.
Do we need explicit intent, or is it implicit by the number of the killings that we have? Murder ones, of course we do. But I want to talk to you about the legal theory. Before that, just got Morgan. You hear Howard Bloom describing 3 times he circled that we know of, and it's caught, I believe, on the top of that rental facility. There's a camera up on the roof.
It was him.
And I looked everywhere. When I was out there, Joe Scott Morgan, I went very slowly, and it was slippery and icy. And I fell more than once. I looked all the way up and down the street for surveillance videos. It's very narrow. I've told you this story. I could stand on one side of the street, look into the kitchen window across the street, and tell you what kind of liquid soap they had sitting on their sink at the kitchen window. It's that close. I did not see the overhead surveillance camera on that rental. It's on the roof. That's incredible. Now, he was talking about the FBI tried everything to enhance the tag and the driver. How? What did they do to enhance?
They're washing this thing through various programs that they have, Nancy, in order to try to tighten down the image, because I'm sure that it's very granulated.
Pixelated.
Particularly given the nighttime status of this, where you're not going to be able to pick up, without some kind of light enhancement, like an infrared or something like this, that'll be able to give you finer detail. So it's going to be greatly compromised. And look, you have to think about the house itself. This house is kind of shaded in darkness from the rear. You're not going to see a lot there. There's not a lot. It's not like being in a huge city where you've got street lights that are all over the place that'll be illuminating this environment. So it's going to be a tough ask if you're thinking about attempting to get an image that's capturable, so that they can do what they need to do in order to identify this individual.
Okay, Joe Scott, just please stop. You know what?
Yep.
I can see a tiny little crater on the moon.
I can see a crater on your face.
But I can't get the tag number or the visage of Kohberger's face. Why?
Because these houses don't have the Hubble telescope on them. These
Nobody likes a smart aleck or a know-it-all, Joe Scott.
Well,
You're right.
The cameras that you're talking about, they're not the highest.
No, they don't.
I mean, look how many are turned out every single day. They're in shops all over the place. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a great quality.
What a cow.
Did Bryan Kohberger's parents suspect their son? An explosive new book suggests family knew more than they ever let on about their troubled son. Author Howard Blum tells us more.
And honestly, how old is that book?
His book is so chock full of evidence and facts supporting what many of us have been thinking and pondering. And so much more. When the Night Comes Falling by Howard Blum. Howard, we were just talking to Joe Scott Morgan about why the FBI could not enhance that video better than it did. I get it, but I heard you saying something in the background. What was that?
Well, not only couldn't they enhance the video, the FBI has this program that they developed really for anti-terrorism activities. And they tried 3 different times to analyze the car, and they got 3 different years. Originally, they had the car was not a Hyundai Elantra. They put a Nissan Sentra. And then finally, there was a 2011, and then a 2013, and then they finally at the end said 2011 to 2015. I can assure you.
Isn't that very interesting? Finally, he said something correct. He finally said that they thought it was a different car all along, right? So they identified it as being a completely different kind of car at all. Then they just had the wrong year, and then they settled on it being in 2015. You know when they settled on that? When they identified Bryan Kohberger and they realized that he had a 2015. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? They didn't settle on the 2015 until they had Bryan Kohberger as a suspect. Yes, that's actually true. Funny that, isn't it?
The FBI's fumblings will come up in court. I'm sure the defense will raise this and try to impugn the identification of the car.
Okay, wait a minute. The FBI fumbling? I don't see them fumbling here. What do you mean by that?
Well, fumbling in the sense that their technology was just not up to snuff, and they gave declarations. The first original be on the lookout notice was not for a 2015 Hyundai Elantra. It was for a 2011 Hyundai Elantra.
Okay, hold on, Howard Blum. Hold on, Howard Blum. You mentioned a detail, and I'm not sure if you thought I was just going to ignore it or didn't catch it, but you said the FBI was trying to enhance. They tried it 3 times, I believe you said.
Oh, not 3 times.
But are you referring to the type of video surveillance that was ultimately introduced in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, where we had satellite surveillance from nearly 9,000 feet in the air to figure out what really happened? And there was video. Did the FBI go to the extent of grabbing sat video?
This was much more rudimentary. What they had was the surveillance photographs, and they tried to enhance it. These were grainy photographs, and they thought they'd run them through this machine, this process, this computer program that was developed at vast expense by the Department of Defense and Homeland Security originally for terrorism activities, and they thought they could get the identity of the car. And then they passed it out in their original Be on the Lookout that the Moscow police sent nationwide for a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. That was a mistake. That wasn't the year of the car they ultimately decided was Kohberger's.
Guys, we are speaking to an all-star panel, including author Howard Bloom, who has just finished his book, When the Night Comes Falling, a Requiem for the Idaho Student Murders. To my panel, I want to thank you for kindly agreeing to join us again tomorrow night, because we've barely scratched the surface of the evidence, how it was accumulated, and what does it mean with Howard Bloom? For instance, have we found a...
Okay, so also, by the way, Garrett, that was J-Rock. J-Rock gave out 20 memberships. Isn't that cool of him? Even though he's been telling me I've been sweeping all week. But apart from that, he's awesome. I know, I forgive him. For the time being, anyway. I take back what I said about him. It is a cat. No, it's always a cat. My child is 12. She doesn't make that sound anymore, unless, you know, she really wants something. But apart from that, it's always this guy. It's always this guy. A panel of people who don't get to talk. Yeah, she keeps them muted, and then she goes, "Panel, why aren't you speaking? Why? You can come in, you know," like that, and they're muted. She's so mean to them. Like, she's super mean to them. And if they disagree with her, she mutes them. Half Irish. She doesn't vet the lead paint chips. Doesn't vet the lead paint chips she eats before her shows. How do you expect her to vet the guests? That's a good one. She only makes that sound when BCS on the screen. Yeah, that's my daughter. My daughter will make that sound if there's a K-pop band on the screen. Yes, you know my daughter, actually, Distant. You've been hanging out a while. She's hilarious, not that she's trying to be. Yeah, indeed. Okay, we're going to finish this off. We're going to finish
receipt for the outfit Bryan Kohberger purchased and wore during the murders.
What?
There's so much more. Please join us tomorrow night with the same all-star panel, including Howard Bloom, as we, like the investigators, comb through the Kohberger evidence. But now we stop and we remember an American hero.
Okay, she does this every time. All right. I'm really sorry to give you her for the last however long. This has been fun, though. I will show you, though. I'm going to do another stream like this during the week, maybe tomorrow if I've got time. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And it's this. Where is it? I'm going to show you the Bryan Kohberger messages in the Tapper Talk forum about his visual snow syndrome, if you're interested. So here he is talking, and this is actually at the, hang on, this is 2011. So here he is. "I am pledging loyalty to this site. It has helped me amazingly." He talks about, "Well, it seems whenever we eat unhealthy things, our symptoms worsen, mostly mental symptoms. Like for me, my tinnitus and snow increase when I eat junk. I think it's related to chemical imbalance because our vessels are going haywire for some reason, and the fact food influences it may mean something. It sounds like you are on mind-altering medication, need help. When I was on Topamax, I did crazy shit that I would have died from. So yes, my pupils were going crazy. I could barely look at light. I felt like I had a film over my vision, and I got sensitive to light. It's like a circle in my vision, outlining the light that I saw." And it goes on and on. There's like, 12 pages of this. there's points in this where he gets really depressed. Like he talks about how he can't go on anymore, and has anyone felt like that and stuff like that. And then later on, he comes to a point where he's sort of accepting the fact that he has this syndrome, and he's worked out some things to do with his diet. He's helping other people on the forum who are just starting to realize that they've got it. And some people have got it worse than others. You can't see anybody else's messages. You can only see his. And some people have said it's not real, but I don't know. Like, it makes sense. The timing of it is right. The way he interacts, everything about like what he's doing in the rest of his life lines up timeline wise. And I haven't seen anything to refute it, to say that it's not real. So yeah, and I don't know. I don't see why it wouldn't be real. I don't see why it wouldn't be real. I haven't heard argument that's convincing to say that it's not real. So yeah. My closed eye visuals. I see that too. I actually saw the Northern Lights thing before I had visual snow. I think that visual snow really is just in our blood, and it is how we are. I don't mind it anymore. It's actually a gift to see something no one else can. Isn't that interesting? That's interesting. Hella and Dali would make it. Oh, shut up. We would not. All right, cool. This has been fun, guys. Thank you, J-Rock, for the gifted memberships. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I just decided to do this for a bit of fun to see how this time slot worked out. It's been fun. It's been fun. I'm going to do more of these because it's I started around my 1 p.m. and it's now 10 to 3 and my little girl's about to come home. So, yeah, why not? If I've got nothing else on, might as well stream. Thank you, everybody. Make Bryan to disprove a triple-double negative 4D chess level statement. Ha-ha! Can't. Guilty! Yeah, why not? Why not? Nancy Grace could exorcise the ghost of an erection. Hey, Dali was into her earlier. He was. He sure was. Okay, I'm going to play my song again, and you can't think that words, and that's not nice, people. It's not nice. Those words aren't nice. That's not what it says. Her name was Aussie. The future. She got on YouTube and made some live streams. And you get mentioned in a minute too. Ready? Excited utterance. The cat is serif, and when he goes missing, we are sans serif. Bye, guys.